Uh,
Okay.
all right. Got it. All right. Stream is starting. You ready to go?
Yep. Are you? That's the question.
Yes. Now,
Two
let me make sure. Okay. There we go. Ready? Go.
Yep.
village idiots with a love-hate relationship
See, you got fat. See, you still look like a 15-year-old girl, but not hot.
who can't stop arguing over Oklahoma sports.
You know what, man? Why am I still talking to you?
Come on, we were doing good there, man.
It's the Just Okay Sports Podcast, hosted by Troy and Darryl.
Sooner Nation, Thunder Nation, we are back. This is the Just Okay Sports Podcast. I am your village idiot, Darryl, and I am here with my brother, Jay Rodicus. What is up, my man?
Well, we're living in the end times. Snowpocalypse has begun. So hopefully, if you have bread and milk, here's the bad thing. I'm going to be real honest with you guys. This is probably going to be my last podcast ever. I don't have any milk.
Oh, gosh.
So probably not going to make it through this. It's good knowing you all. Please remember me.
I think you
would
have plenty of stuff in your refrigerator that will keep you warm through this.
Okay, let's just look at this statement you just made. Plenty of things in my refrigerator that are going to keep me warm.
Yeah, or maybe in your freezer, or maybe just on top of your refrigerator or freezer. Either
let
way,
me go get the cold things out of my refrigerator that are going to keep me warm.
A chilled scotch is very good and keeps you very warm.
Oh, so now I'm getting called an alcoholic. Great. Anyways, moving right along.
Oh, God.
So I actually don't have any alcohol. That's another problem. So I can't even be like a depressed.
That's a problem.
I may have a little bit of vodka, so I could just go full Russian, I guess. But anyway. Yeah.
Real quick, did you guys get a lot of ice? Like, y'all were supposed to get iced over, but you said it's snowing like crazy.
Yeah, so it's snowing like crazy right now, or was just when I was outside with the dogs. It is excuse me. It is extremely it was extremely it sleeted really hard earlier. It was extremely cold and kind of windy for a little bit even. And then now it's snowing, but it's sleeted very hard for probably like 2 or 3 hours. So it's I mean, just like crazy. I think it's actually going to be worse than what was predicted if it keeps up like it is. Because we were supposed to get just a little bit of snow and just like a lot of ice.
Yeah.
And now we're getting like, I mean, I was out there and it was big flakes. I mean, my dogs went outside and they came in and their whole backsides were just covered in snow. So yeah, it's wild.
I love how dogs love the snow, man. They like once they get out in it, they're just Nala's been out in it like 4 times and just dead sprint like everywhere she can go. But she doesn't have as much hair as your dog, so she can't handle it as long. Yeah,
so I got to tell a story real quick about so one of my she's not really a neighbor. She lives down the road. She's I guess the neighborhood Karen now. She came and knocked on my door because Freya went outside today and did not want to come inside. Because it was sleeting, it was cold. She just loves the cold weather. She's already kind of like she's an inside dog, but she likes to be outside a lot. So sometimes she'll go. She literally, there's sometimes I let her outside and she stays outside for like 10 hours because on her own volition, right? So anyway, obviously, if you don't know, my dogs are Malamutes. So they're bred to pull sleds like in Alaska, right? Alaskan Malamutes, kind of in the name. So she knocks my door and she's like, "Hey, is your dog in your backyard?" And I go, "Yeah." I said, "I think so." I said, she was just when I just checked on her just earlier. And she goes, "Well, why are you not bringing her inside?" I was like, she's a Malamute. She's fine. And she's like, "No, it's not. It's too cold right now for any dog to be outside." I was like, and at this point, it's like 20, 25 degrees, right? I'm like, these dogs, as ironically, he walks up behind me.
Do you not see the hair on this dog?
Yeah. I was like, dude, these dogs literally can survive in like -40. Like they're gonna be fine. But she was like pissed. And I was like, okay, I'll bring him in, like whatever,
That's
or bring her in. But anyway, so yeah, snowpocalypse is upon us. So
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to the hot stuff. And by the way, if you stick around for the stream, if you listen to this on Apple Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, whatever, or if you're seeing us on YouTube right now and you enjoy, please hit a subscribe button, hit a like button, leave comments, all those kinds of things that helps us out. Matter of fact, it's already helped us out, kind of getting some traction and seeing people look. We've got a recent linebacker offer, Darian Goulet, 3/4-star linebacker that's going to come on and do an interview with us here in the next week or two. So I'm going to kind of get a feel for what this new staff is pitching and how kids feel about it. So it'd be great. So do those things for us. That would be great. We would be very, very appreciative, and it would be awesome for us. Obviously, it's National Signing Day. So let's get to the hot in the midst of this snowpocalypse. The worst kept secret in all of college football, Caleb Williams transfers to USC. I mean, I thought we had a shot. Thought it was 50-50. Thought it could go. I thought it could go either way. I really did. Wait, no, it didn't.
Yeah. I mean,
So
it was kind of funny how, like, okay, let me just say this, because I've said this. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Okay. When it comes to recruiting, you're talking about kids that are 17, 18 to 22 years old, right? And somewhere in that age range. And think about what you were doing when you were 18 to 22 years old. Like, you had no idea. You were flying by the seam of your pants at all times, probably, right? And that's what these kids are doing. So people that try to say, well, I know, it's like, no, you don't. Like, the kid doesn't know. Like, I mean, so it's one of those things that it's obviously people are guessing, but it's kind of funny because everybody was like, no, there's a good chance, like, oh, you've got a shot. And then, like, within like 24 hours, like, well, maybe it's like 20 or 30%. It's like, well, that's what I said the second he entered the portal. Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Just by using logic, right? I mean, we can all try to just take your rose or your crimson colored glasses off for a minute and be like, look.
Well, look,
this is what it is.
Like I said, I'm not trying to be mean, but when a guy plays here an entire year, and granted, his coach is left, we all understand that part. But you stay for a full month with new staff in hand, and really not much new staff, right? Like, most of the same offensive staff. You talk with the OC and the head coach every single day after they get hired, and you still enter the portal. You don't want to be here like that. I mean, it was in front of, if you were mad, if you were shocked, if you were whatever, that's fine. Now, if you got sucked into he's going to UCLA or Wisconsin or whatever, okay, maybe, but even that was being debunked all through the week. That wasn't going to happen. So
if people don't even remember, Georgia was like, well, he's going to Georgia. And then, like, everybody for like a full 24 hours was like, it's going to be Georgia. And then, like, immediately it was like, Georgia says, no, we're out on it. And then it was Miami. And then Miami did the same thing. Right. So, I don't know. I mean, the whole situation stinks to high heaven. And I mean, honestly, it's what's funny is it makes me more angry at Lincoln than it does Caleb.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, my hatred for Tebow has gone through the roof. And like with Caleb, it's like, I don't really I don't appreciate it, and I don't like it stings. It's like the ex that you had a little nasty breakup with, where he's tweeting at USC, like all the USC, like, dude, I was cracking up. It was like Matt Leinart was like, there's so many great quarterbacks at USC, and I was like, oh my god, shut up.
20 years ago.
Yeah. And and it's funny because, like I said, it's been a frustrating, and then obviously all the fans are now pounding their chest. I'm like, guys, like, I'm so sick. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Right now, USC is by far the most absurd fan base in all of America in any sport.
Well,
because it's like you just went 4-8. You went 4-8, and you had like a record attendance of 500 people this year. That's great. And you're trying to act like you're going to be in the national championship this year with 100,000 people at every game. Like, no.
Well, I will say this. So I had this way later in the lineup, but let's just jump to it now. So I got into a space yesterday after all the news came out with USC fans. Two things really stood out to me as funny But before I even say that, I will say this. They are very realistic, at least the group I was in, that this is a step, and they think that not this year, but next year they could take a big leap. And I thought, okay, like
that checks out.
That's a fair statement, right? The funny things that happened were there's probably about 10 or 15 of us that were OU fans that were just listening, right? Like just wanted to kind of see what they were saying, how they were reacting. And the guy hosting it says, hey, one of you OU fans want to jump in here and talk to us or whatever, as long as you're cool, we'll let you do that. And I knew at least 3 other people in there. We all requested to talk. He's like, yeah, man, none of these OU fans want to talk. Ain't none of them wanting to talk. It's like, and then we're all like messaging, like, are you not seeing my request? Like, we'll talk to you. Like, we're not scared to talk. And then they totally like shut down the space. I mean, it was like, okay. The second thing that was funny was them talking about, now that we've got Caleb, can you imagine what our spring game attendance is going to be? They were talking about their spring game attendance. And then this statement came out. I bet you it's more than like the UCLA game. I bet we have more people there. And I'm like,
it probably won't
like
be.
You said, you had like 20,000 people at the UCLA game. Like, that's it. Like, there's no way you're going to have that at your spring game.
Well, and here's the thing. Like you just said, I think realistically, like this is kind of where I think Tebow painted himself into a corner, right? Because I think when you look at how the California fan base is, the LA fan base, whether it be with pro team or not, like you remember when like the Angels were dominating and all that, and they were really good. They had all these great players, and it was like all the games were sold out, like even the baseball games. And then as soon as they were bad, it did not take long for the stadium to be empty again. And I mean that's just the fact, right?
Right.
And the problem is they're playing at the freaking Rose Bowl, which historically is but it's not an amazing facility. People are going to SoFi right now because SoFi is the new hotness, right? Like it's the latest, greatest, and it is legit. It's gorgeous and wonderful, right? But again, and that's the other problem they have, is if he comes out, like let's say they go out and let's just say, like, to me, like a realistic expectation would be like 6-6, like you make it to a bowl, whatever, right? 6-6, I think, would be a good season for USC right now. Because yes, they did bring in Mario and Caleb and a few other pieces in the transfer portal, but they lost like 25 people or something in the portal or to leaving. Their staff kind of feels like it's in disarray. And anyway,
yeah.
So 6-6, let's say 6-6. Let's just go ahead and say 6-6. The problem is now that like the LA fan base most of that LA fan base is gonna be like, we'll just go watch the Rams instead.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think that they could have, based on their schedule, the only problem that USC has next year is that all of their tough games are on the road. Like it's at Utah, it's at Stanford, it's at whatever. But anyway, so they were okay. They're gone. They've moved on. Yep. Let's get into National Signing Day because that's what happened today. OU closes with Gentry Williams was kind of already a part of the class, right? But then you get 4 other guys today down the line that we'll get into. So your Gentry Williams was confirmed signing today. You have R. Mason Thomas, who is a 6'2", 215-pound edge rusher that got added to this class. You have Grayson Halton, 4-star, 6'3", 270-pound, 4-star defensive end. And then Cavante Henry, a 3-star as well, edge / linebacker kind of guy. These guys had offers: Washington, Oregon, Michigan, Florida, USC, Utah for Henry. You have USC, Oregon, Michigan, Miami, Nebraska, Penn State, Texas for Halton, Utah, Florida, Penn State, West Virginia, Nebraska, Arkansas for Jamarian Burt. Sorry, I went right over him. 6'1", 175-pound athlete. I'm thinking they're thinking safety more so with him, maybe nickelback. And then R. Mason Thomas was more of a 3-star guy, more of a high ceiling kind of guy, but was committed to Iowa State for a long time. And let's be real, they've done a really good job of finding under the radar guys, especially on the D line, that have been great. So huge ads. Anything stand out to you in the midst of all that?
Well, first off, I want to say because it was kind of frustrating because Gentry never decommitted, right? People were trying to, it's like,
Correct.
he just said, I want to meet the new staff, which is understandable, right? Like it's a totally
100%.
new defensive staff. Okay. While the offensive side looks pretty similar, I can understand your defensive staff is literally all new. And so, and apparently Valai, however you want to say his name,
The lie.
Valai, dude, that apparently he just hit it off. I mean, that guy's only been at the schools for a year, but I hope somehow that we manage to keep him for longer because it seems like the review from recruits has been high. But anyway, I mean,
Mhm.
Gentry Williams like put his film on, dude. The kid's just an athlete. I mean, I don't know that we need to spend a whole lot of time on that. If you can't see that, then you're not a big football fan apparently. Now the one cool thing I think is I mean, out of the guys you listed, I think Halton is probably going to be like, to me, has the outside of Williams has the highest chance to be something special, right?
Right.
But it's going to be like you said. That's the thing is when you look at these guys, some of these guys kind of appear to be raw or a little bit like, some of these guys like maybe put on 20 pounds or whatever. Spend a couple of seasons under Schmitty, and then these kids can be really good. Like some of these kind of are development projects, which is just perfectly fine.
Sure.
Gavin Freeman, I think it's amazing that Gavin Freeman, who had an
Yeah.
offer to go to another university, is coming as a preferred walk-on, which it probably is going to be like the Drake Stoops sort of scenario where it's like he's there for a semester and then they put him on scholarship as soon as one frees up or whatever. So,
Well, and here, let me say this about Gavin Freeman. So, you know, obviously when you listen to things like sports radio or you get into spaces or whatever, guys were, why are we taking a Gavin Free, blah, 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 blah. This kid's 5'10". Yada. His measurables line up pretty dang close with Drake Stoops currently, right? Who's been in college for 3-4 years now, about the same build. From what I've been told, and even Teddy Lehman apparently is friends with his dad, said that he has clocked a legitimate 4.4 something, 4.47, 4.48 range, which means if that's true, athletically, he is a better athlete than Drake Stoops. Drake Stoops is more a 4.5, 4.6 guy, but here's a thing. Drake runs incredible routes, has a great feel for zone. He's a coach on the field, right? And he doesn't drop anything. He catches everything.
mm-hmm.
Gavin Freeman's legit. And also, by the way, for everybody that wants to say Gavin Freeman, who cares? He broke every record Sterling Shepard had at Heritage Hall.
Yeah.
Like,
which,
put
by the
that
way,
in perspective for a second.
Yeah. And if you're not familiar with Oklahoma high school football, Heritage Hall is pretty much a dominant powerhouse in the state. They're private schools, so they can even recruit and do whatever. They pretty much spend every year in the playoffs. So,
and granted, smaller school, they're like 4A, like all these things. I'm telling you right now, the kid's going to play at some point. Like, as long as he stays healthy, keeps his nose, he will play at some point. Not some kind of, I'm not saying he's the next Sterling Shepard. Sterling Shepard, if you went and watched that dude play, he was all other world. But that, I mean, again, a 3-star scholarship athlete coming as a walk-on, that's a big deal.
Do you think? Okay, so my question is, and this is one of the things that I am curious to get your thoughts on. Do you think that this is Venables, his new thing being like, we're gonna make Oklahoma, like, I know this sounds dumb, we're gonna make Oklahoma's recruiting ground, like, because under Lincoln you had a lot of guys, that were in the state of Oklahoma that were talented enough, more than talented enough to be on the roster, and we would go after a Cali kid or something. It's like, okay, I'm not saying you have to go after every Oklahoma kid, you can't, right? But
right.
At the same time, you were letting 4 and sometimes even 5 stars go because you were worried about landing the kid in Florida or California.
Right. No question that Venables is already, I mean, with the coaching clinic stuff that they've done and gone to, the schools that they visit, if you follow them, and all that kind of stuff on Twitter, there's constantly been coaches in the state of Oak. Thank you for coming by. Thank you for being here. Now, look, I know it's going to make everybody mad. You have to give credit in this class to Lincoln Riley as well, though. I mean, Lincoln Riley staff that first got Gentry Williams. It was Lincoln Riley staff that first got RSJ, Jaden Rowe, all those guys. needless to say, yes, Venables is definitely going to be much more invested in the state. No question. And even did you hear the thing about Bob Stoops this week talking about Oklahoma, that whole deal? Did you hear that soundbite that got out? They asked him kind of what his mindset was towards Oklahoma recruiting. They said not as big of a state, not necessarily the super talent rich, but good football and good football players. So how did you approach that stuff? And he said, if we were going to miss, if there was a kid we were going to take a chance on and miss, I wanted to be an Oklahoma kid rather than an out-of-state kid. And he said one of the best examples he could give actually was Dan Cody. He said, look, he said, we had like 3 different coaches recruiting Dan. We had somebody recruiting him at tight end. We had somebody recruiting him like at linebacker. We had somebody recruiting him at defensive end, but none of them felt good about, I don't know if he really fits, right? They were all just kind of like, where do we put him? How do we use him? And so he said, anytime we had a situation like that, the staff would bring me the tape and then I would look through the tape. And so they bring me, he goes, I'd have to watch 5 plays until I said, yeah, we're offering that kid and we're taking him. They were like, where are you going to play? He goes, I don't care. He's like, we're going to figure it out. That kid can play ball. Like, get him here. And once we get around him and once we get him in the weight room, we'll figure out where he belongs. He's like, but that was a prime example. Like, we may have missed on him and he may not have fit, but I'm going to take a chance on that every single time. And I think BV does that as well. And I think you've already seen him,
well, I mean,
taking that chance a little bit right now.
Well, and I think the thing is like, I think another thing that you have to highlight, I think, is, and don't get me wrong, I understand the fan base. I understand wanting a guy that's a 5-star or 4-star. I understand the ratio of how good they are to how many are bad or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, I think Venables is also going to take more of an approach of like taking some kids. I don't want to use the 5-star hearts thing, whatever, but like some of these guys that we just got on National Signings Day are 3 stars. But it's like when you really look at them, when you really watch their film or you look at their stats, it's like, okay, this guy can put on a little weight, or, if you get him in, like I said, like they've got high ceilings if you can get their size up or, whatever. I mean, the size is just one factor, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that I think he's going to take that approach to it and not just, I think they're just going to do true evaluation. And I feel like even under Riley, I feel like that kind of went out the window to some degree.
Yep.
I think there was a lot of let's offer this kid because he's a 4 or 5-star more than it was this guy just fits our scheme. Or, is going to be great or whatever.
5 stars are great. I mean, like, let's be real. If we could have a whole class of 5 stars, none of us be upset about it, right? But still, yes, I do think that you will see Brent trust his eye a little bit more, right? He has shown that he's willing to do that. But look, even so, like this class without a 5-star in it is the 8th class in the nation. Okay, that's the composite on 247. You have a number 8 class. And again, all the analytics tell you need X number of top 10 classes to really be a viable college football playoff team, right? Like, and by the way, this is the 2nd highest class rating in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
In a transition where you had a guy poach guys out of this class, right?
Yeah.
So I think it ended up well, and I believe they're 6th or 7th. I need to go back and see what all the final is, but out of like, again, the scoring system that they use to rank classes is a little messed up because, like, for instance, Texas has 28 commits. Okay, 28, and yet they're only 22 points ahead of OU, right? So if OU had 28, I believe them in Texas that they would be ahead of Texas, if that makes any sense, right? But again, like we mentioned several weeks ago, the average score, right? They score these guys on a 1 to 100 scale. OU is at 6 or 7 out of the top 10, right? So they're even higher rated per athlete, and that's what you want to get to, right? And I think that's the thing that really grabs your attention.
Yeah, and I mean, and again, it's, I don't know, it's so I think people get lost in the numbers sometimes too, because it's like, I mean, part of that is also just how you fill out your roster. Like, you filled a lot of really big needs, right? So like, even if they were ranked 20th or whatever, right? It still could be a good class as long as you're filling your needs. Now, obviously you want as high as you can, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
Like Texas has 28 recruits and 15 of them are O linemen because they're getting paid 100K to be there, whatever it is.
Mhm.
I mean, so you can't play that many linemen. They have more offensive lineman commits in this class than they can literally play on the field. So in one
Yeah.
class, like you still have
Yeah.
kids on roster, and I mean,
Yeah.
it's anyways, it just doesn't make sense. But anyways, so
Well,
yeah,
look,
no, I mean,
like
I think
thinking on Oklahoma sports for a second, kind of to what you're saying, right? We don't talk about them much, but Oklahoma State. When's the last time Oklahoma State's had a top 15 recruiting class?
mhm.
And in all honesty, with just a few things going the right way, they're a college football playoff team this year. And I think they'd have given some teams some fits because their defense was that good.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, their
and the
defense
thing
was
is,
that good.
and a lot of this comes back down to coaching too, right? Because like when you look at Oklahoma State's defense this year, you don't look at anybody and go like, "Oh man, that dude's going to be an NFL superstar." Like literally,
Malcolm
no.
Rodriguez.
Okay, Malcolm Rodriguez, but even then, like I think he's going to be. I think he could be a NFL. Okay, one guy. We'll just say one guy on
I
the
think
defense.
they got, yeah. But I hear no superstar.
But what I'm saying is they played to the level of. I mean, I hate to say this, but because they weren't good this year, but like a Bama, like one of the Bama good defenses, like they were really good, they were really sound defense, and they didn't have but they didn't have 5 stars everywhere,
Right.
and they didn't even have guys that are going to probably even make it to the league or they're going to be on a practice squad, right? Like that's just the reality of it. They're just a solid coach team, and I think that's what Venables is gonna. That's another thing that people need to realize is it's going to take him. I still say it's going to take him a couple of seasons to get his feet under him, get some guys in there that fit a scheme, kind of change the mentality and the culture. But I mean, I think he's going to be that guy that's going to make this team extremely sound, like a sound defense. So
Well, and again, look, like one of the reasons that this is the most inaccurate science in the world, including the NFL draft as well, right? Like you are taking, as you said earlier, 17, 18, 19-year-old kids. You're taking them away from their home, away from their parents, away from their structure, away from their culture, and you're putting them in a culture where while they have a lot of structure and they have a lot of things to keep them busy, if you will, they also have more freedom than they've ever had. They're considered superstars because they play at these great schools. And I mean, we've seen it, right? I mean, the whole issue with Mikey Henderson and Trajan, right? Like all those guys had very bright futures, all of them. And they chose to be idiots and make some really poor choices that ended it all. Right.
Well,
and so I mean, like you can't totally predict that, but that's like the key is, are the guys I'm bringing in willing to absolutely grind and not worry about frat parties and not worry, not that they never go or do, but you know what I'm saying? Like that's not going to pull them away from the agenda.
Well, yeah, and here's the thing. Look, Norman is a cool college town. Okay, Norman's a really cool college town.
Yeah.
And you can have a lot of fun. I had a blast there. I mean, I get it, and especially if you're a football player and whatever. But this is what kind of cracks me up. Tebow just went to L.A. And by the way, USC's campus is not in a great part of town. Like,
Yeah.
and it's L.A. There's distractions everywhere. So it's like I don't know how in the world that he's not gonna have 15 arrests a season. If he had that many in Norman, I'm just being honest, right? Like in Norman, it's like, to be honest, as cool as Norman is, it's like I would rather it'd be more chalked up to like somebody got arrested because they were bored and did something stupid, right? Like,
yeah,
obviously there was the Trajan and all that situation, which was just absurd. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
that seems more likely. In LA, it's like just because there's just that much around you to distract you and to get you into trouble. So anyways, it's going to be interesting to see how this all pans out for him. But yeah, I mean, like I said, this class I think is going to be solid. I think I do believe him when he says he's trying to get high quality character kids, because I mean, and when you really think about it, I mean, I think that's something that Bob did. I know people will try to highlight like even the Dusty thing or the Joe Mixon thing, and it's like, look, there's outside of a few exceptions, most everybody on those teams that Bob coached are absolutely upstanding and amazing citizens now, right? Like they are widely considered, they're highly respected. They're highly regarded, et cetera, et cetera. Even Dusty, right? Dusty
Yeah.
Dvorak is a big name now in sports
Yeah.
broadcasting, and Roy
Yeah.
Williams is, I mean, like I said, so I think that's something that Brent's gonna bring back, and obviously now that we've all taken our Tebow colored glasses off, we can probably say that that's something that Tebow was not really that focused on. But anyways, let's get into the presser. How does that sound? Let's talk about Brent Venables some more.
Yeah, absolutely. So number one, the Zoom connection in the middle of the snowstorm was terrible. Broke up a lot, but there were a few questions that I thought were really interesting. He was asked kind of what was the story with Caleb? When did he kind of know that was all going south? Those kinds of things. When did you cut ties with Caleb was kind of more or less like the question. And that was Eric Bailey that asked that question. And he literally said, he opened up by saying, if you enter the portal, you're not happy where you are. He goes, and I have to kind of assume that. He said, so as soon as he entered the portal, my job, in order to be loyal to the locker room, was to immediately go find a quarterback. And that's what we did. So we went and got that done. And after a few days, communication really just got to a point where you just kind of knew it wasn't going to go, wasn't going to go our way. So it all moved really fast. There was this back and forth and this and that. Doesn't really seem like that was the case, but it also seems like, I know, for instance, like Scoop had said at one point that the Williams family tried to reach, and they said it this way, back out to OU, and OU kind of said, we're good. Like, we got guys and we're moving on.
Well, and this is kind of goes back to, and again, I don't want to use this example, but it's kind of, I can't remember the kid's name. He went to Oklahoma State, his brother, and they went because they offered his brother. I'm totally blanking on his name right now.
Oh,
professional
Shetron.
podcaster, brother. Yeah. It was like the deal with him. It's like, okay, well, you can't really bow down to one player just to get them, and like bend your will to one player. So I think that's probably where it got with Caleb, where it's like they really wanted him and they really understood the special talent that he is. But it was like at some point it was like, look, we're not going to bend the knee to you because you think you're that special. Like, you're going to have to come here and want to be here. And if you don't want to be here, fine. I mean, it's that realistic, hard stance you have to take sometimes in real life of just saying, here's the line. You're either with me or you're against me. Let's just decide. And
again, to be clear on that, you're like, OU had a full month putting their best foot forward every single day for a month. Like,
yeah.
So that's the context. Like, I think you and I both are on the same, like, you don't just go, hey man, if you're going to enter the portal, we're moving. Like, no, like if Lincoln had left and 2 days later, Caleb goes, hey, I'm going in the portal to see what the options are. Hey, totally understand that. But that's not what happened. They had a full month, conversations and all that.
I think that's why people are like having such a big reaction to it, and like why it's such a weird story, because he stayed and played in a bowl game that he could have got hurt in, and he played with, I mean, I would say reckless abandon, but he wasn't playing scared. Like, I don't want to get hurt, right? Like, he wasn't sliding every time somebody was in 15 yards of him or whatever. No. Like, he was playing like he really wanted to win that game, and he really wanted to lead Oklahoma to a bowl victory, and yada yada yada. And like, he was being a leader. And then it was like, dude, as soon as the game was over, it's like, well, Oklahoma did a good job later. It was like, okay, I mean, it was, and then of course, so it was a weird deal. So you thought, okay, well, maybe like I can understand entering the portal. We even talked about it. We're like, maybe just entering the portal just to get feelers for who's interested, and then he'll come back. But then it dragged on and it dragged on and it dragged on. And it was like, dude, I mean, like the thing that blows my mind is like, why were you not on campus 3 weeks ago at USC? Because it seems like you made your mind up. I mean, so obviously, I think kind of what happened to them probably is I think they kind of put themselves out on an island that they couldn't get off of. I think they probably burnt the bridge with OU. They probably burnt the bridge with Georgia and Miami and every other school that had tried to give them a big NIL package. Probably we went to Wisconsin was a last ditch effort and to say, hey, what can you do for us? And probably couldn't do enough. And so they had to take USC's offer, but maybe they didn't want it, but at the same time, it's like, that's what you have. So you kind of put yourself in this situation. So I don't have a whole lot of remorse for you.
And I think it was a done deal. I mean, even seeing the video release that USC did with him and Mario doing all the stuff to get, I mean, I think again, as fast as they moved on Dylan Gabriel, as fast as Mario committed to USC, I think it was pretty clear. They were all jumping out there and doing that. So that was the main thing with Caleb. The other question he got asked about was Jaren Kanak, right?
Mhm.
And how did that
Love
all
that kid.
work out? How did that come together? And it was awesome. Brent said, look, man, I did everything I could to calm him. He said, obviously he was uncertain and afraid about what was going to happen at Clemson. And I tried to reassure him, hey, they're going to hire great people like they always have. You know, they're going to do what they
Right.
do, and you need to stick with that. He even told Kanak, I don't have a spot. I don't have a spot for you. I'm full. Like, told Kanak he was full. And then apparently, according to Venables, he believes that Mom and Kanak reached out to Dabo, and they just said, look, man, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, and we're not going. And that's when Dabo kind of gave the blessing of, hey, reach out to Brent. And if that's where you really want to be, then, you know, why don't you do that kind of a thing? So that was
Well,
kind of the story
look,
on that.
I do have to feel like I got to eat crow a little bit because I've always been pretty critical of Dabo, but Dabo has been kind of a class act through this thus far, at least it seems. I know that there's been some rumors about some tension in that program now, but like I said, it blew my mind. Clemson's game was on before the OU game when they played in the Oregon
Yeah.
in the Alamo Bowl, and he was like,
Yeah.
"Man, I just want you guys to know, go watch the Oklahoma game. My boy Brent's the new head coach over there." Like, and just shouted out Brent for like 30 seconds, and I was like, "Dude, like, okay." Like, and he's continuously showed support to Brent, so I can understand. Like, I mean, kudos to him, right? Like, I just gotta say,
Yeah.
he's been a stand-up guy, and he's taken the high road at pretty much every juncture, at least as far as we've seen. So
Yeah.
yeah, but anyway, I mean, yeah, the Koenig
Well,
just still is like a Koenig. I mean, like I said, it just reminds you of what like it cracks you up because like Baker tweeted him and says sometimes you just got to take things in your own hand. Because I mean, Baker did the same thing. Baker just showed up on campus.
yeah.
Like Bob said,
Yeah.
like I was walking around campus and they're like, "Hey, the new quarterback's here." He's like, "New quarterback? What?" And
Yeah.
then saw Baker Mayfield walking around. He's like, aren't you at Tech?" You know, like he said he had no idea, like literally had no idea until he was in his office that he was coming.
Yeah. It's wild. And just the way Brent talked about that again, and I want to be careful about piling on, but just a completely different mentality, right, than Lincoln. I mean, a guy telling a linebacker he believes in, hey, I don't have a spot for you, compared to I made a decision in 4 hours. I'm going to go have a presser, and I'm going to be in the living room of almost every single kid that I offered at Oklahoma, trying to get them to flip over to USC. Right. I mean, just a completely different mentality and process and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and all I
He
can
was
say,
also,
go ahead,
oh,
sorry.
good.
I
No,
just
you're
say, I
good.
mean, the only thing I would say is like I just think that's Lincoln's painted has tainted his own reputation. So I don't feel bad.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Right.
I mean, he again, it's you made these decisions, you have to live with it. So
Oh, we're about to get into way more of that.
uh-huh.
The other interesting question he got asked was about like the staff, like with Bates and all that stuff. And man, he just kind of straight up said, he goes, look, man, those are guys I've worked with. They know how I work. I know how they work. We try, like, you could tell Brent did not feel bad at all about the people he hired. And he even said, he goes, look, for almost every single one of those guys, it was a promotion. And he said, like, and he talked about, like, for example, he said, for me, I was offered the defensive coordinator position at Kansas State. But he said, I knew I wasn't ready to do that yet. Like, that was too big of a jump for me. And Bob offered me the job at Oklahoma, and I knew I could learn and become so much better and be prepared to be a defensive coordinator. Right. And he said, so it literally had nothing to do with Kansas State. I loved it there. I loved Coach Schneider. I loved what we were building. I just wasn't ready. It just wasn't where I needed to be. In order for me to get where I wanted to be, Oklahoma was the better spot. And he goes, and I feel like I've offered everybody I've brought here that same thing. I think I've offered them the ability to up their ante and to get wherever it is that they want to go. So I thought that was interesting. Like, there was definitely way less like, yeah, me and Dabo had to work that. I mean, he was just kind of like, no, man, I offered them all promotions and they took them. And that's the way this thing rolls. So I thought that was interesting within that. The other thing that was interesting was Levy. Now I'm still mad because Ted Roof did one as well, but I didn't get a chance to get through it. But I got through Levy's. Caden Helms, the tight end that they have here, which, by the way, was also recruited by Levy and Joe John Finley at Ole Miss at one point, has already put on 7 pounds with Coach Schmidt. He is already up 7 pounds over there. But here's what I thought was interesting. They asked him about Dylan Gabriel and how that all came together. And he said, obviously, when Gabriel went in, we had conversations, but we were working with Caleb. And he said about 48 hours before Caleb entered the portal, we kind of got tipped off that was coming. And I thought that was just a real interesting tidbit of, And so he kind of basically said, like, we reached out to Dylan and we said, look, we knew if he attended a class on this day, then he would be ineligible for a year. And I asked him to hold, I said, just give me these 48 hours and then I'll let you know. And as soon as it happened, I was like, all right, it's done deal. And it was over. And he goes, man, I'm grateful for their trust and all that stuff. And by the way, he's just a good old boy, man. Like, he is the most good old boy of all time. I had not really heard him speak.
By the way, he is a large human being, by the way.
Yeah, he's old lineman, dude.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that's I wouldn't want to meet him in a dark alley.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, no, he is, and I mean, like I said, I know there's still a lot of questions. I mean, like, one thing I want to highlight is because I don't want to make it seem like we're being hypocritical here. I mean, like, obviously there was questions about the whole Baylor thing because he was there during some of that, but it's like, I mean, he seems like I don't think Brent would bring him if there was questions about that. I mean, Brent said that.
Yeah.
So
I think that's why it took so long to get him here. I mean, that took longer than the rest. I think it was them doing as much background check as they possibly could. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean,
and big culture change with Jeff Levy. I said, hey, you brought in a kid you like a lot, Nick Evers. He goes, yeah, it's my first visit, first contact. Said, you got Dylan Gabriel. Do you have a starting quarterback or do you have a quarterback competition? He goes, oh, no, we have no competition. Dylan Gabriel's a quarterback. He's like, that dude, he goes, in his career, averages 300 yards a game and 3 touchdowns. That's my quarterback. I was like,
well,
yes,
and like,
quarterback competition.
Like, and I want to say this again. So people, if you're an OU fan and you're like foaming at the mouth about Dylan Gabriel, I do think Dylan Gabriel is going to be a very, very good quarterback. There's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be a very, very good quarterback. Okay. But he's not going to be, I don't think he's going to win the Heisman, right? Like, I don't think he's going to be heads and tails above everybody else, right? Like, I think he's going to be a very, very, very solid quarterback. And he'll probably, and the thing is, the good news you have is kind of like, if say he has a really good season this year, right? Like, say he puts up those same numbers, there's probably a good chance he does go to the pros. That's probably why there's not much competition. That's probably why you have Nick Evers perfectly fine sitting behind him, because he knows that as long as he has a good season, well, you're going to be starting quarterback next year anyway, or you're going to have a good shot at it. So yeah, I mean, it's a good deal. And Levy's, and like I said, the one thing that, again, just not to circle back to Caleb, but it's like, I will say, just Caleb in a Levy offense still makes me just foam at the mouth thinking about it. But it, whatever, I guess. But Dylan Gabriel, we'll see how he does. I mean, it's gonna be weird watching I'm gonna have to get used to watching somebody throw a football left-handed, but it is what it is. So
absolutely.
But yeah, so I'm hyped for the offense. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, and then really the only bad news this week, as far as the recruiting, to kind of wrap that up, I know it's been discussed a lot, but DeAndre Moore, California wide receiver from the 2023 class, decommitted this week. Look, I want to be very careful. I do not know that I know, right? Talking with people that typically know some of this stuff and kind of have some behind the scenes stuff.
What you're saying is it's 50-50.
It's 50-50, but I will say this. Okay. When all those other California guys in the 2023 class bailed basically like within minutes of each other and then all committed to USC, DeAndre Moore expressed his commitment to Oklahoma. He expressed his trust and his affection, I guess you would say, for DeMarco Murray, who's his main recruiter. Right. And even like within days of his decommitment, he was still pumping OU. So then that kind of leaves you like, what's going on there? It seems to be pretty consistent. You never know what's going to happen now, but that Brent Venables has a policy that if you are committed, you can't visit. So Brent runs with that policy, and we've talked about this before. I can go back and forth on that policy. I say let the kids visit even if they're committed personally, but Brent doesn't. And the rumor is that his quarterback is being recruited and invited, and wants him to come with him. And Brent said, you have to decommit if you're going to take visits, man. That's just the way it goes. So it seems as though that's what it is. Now, he could possibly not end up a Sooner. I'm not trying to hedge my bets. I'm just telling you what the main thing is from everybody that seems to have that information. That seems to be the case.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think you have to look at it in the sense of, okay, he is going, like I said, there's a good chance. I mean, he's not going to hype it up. DeMarco showed a talent for recruiting. I think there's a very good chance he ends back up at OU. Who knows, though, right? Again,
right.
Just like I said earlier, 18-year-old, 17-year-old kid, who knows what the heck he's going to do tomorrow. Yeah, I think it's going to be, it's not good news, but again, I don't think it's really bad news. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of neutral news at worst, because it's like it could go either way now. Like it,
right?
Whatever.
Well,
so
it's a long way away. It's just a long way away. A spot that can be filled.
Yeah. And again, and also real quick, I do think I don't think I have a problem with the whole Brent visits thing. I kind of get it. Like that's his kind of mantra. Like if you're committed to Oklahoma, you're committed to Oklahoma.
Right.
That mindset. And I also can agree that it doesn't matter if he's a 5-star, 3-star, 2-star, unranked, whatever. This is the rules. You abide by them, right?
Right.
So that may be the conversation. He said, like, look, you're gonna have to decommit. You go take a couple of visits, and you want to recommit. We're obviously welcome you back. Bob's your uncle. We'll move on, right? Like, but he's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna say, well,
Right.
The thing is if he goes on a visit, like that's what people forget. Say he takes a visit to Penn State, or I don't know, I'm just picking a random school, right? People are going to see him on campus. People are going to notice that. Well, if other recruits are saying, well, look, you told me I couldn't go on a visit while committed, and he's out there recruiting, and he's out here on a visit, what the heck?
Right.
Like you could lose a whole class. I mean,
right.
You open up the playbook for negative recruiting.
Yeah. And again, there's two sides of that coin, right? The one, which was Riley's way of doing things, and a lot of coaches for that matter. Hey, if you're committed, go do what you want to do. Right. And as long as you're committed to us, we're good. And then the other, you can often earn trust with kids by doing that. You can, they can go recruit for you if they're truly committed at these other schools, right? Like that kind of stuff. The other end of that, though, is just like, not to bring back up who's in the portal, but Kamar Wheaton, right? Like committed, but was taking an unofficial to Texas, took an unofficial to Alabama, like was kind of making these rounds. Well, I'm just going with friends, right? Like I'm just doing the thing, but you don't know. And it makes it incredibly difficult on a staff when a guy that says they're committed is continually taking visits of, are we a spot holder or do they want to be here? And like, look, like if you're using a school as a spot holder, you're not going to go, yeah, I mean, if none of this other stuff works out, I want to stay with you guys. Like you know what I mean? Like you're not going to come out and say that. So it makes it really difficult to know what your next move needs to be. So I can see why both ends of it do it, but just what it is.
Yeah, it's a complicated matter. So, but yeah, I mean, again, we'll see what happens with them. It's kind of funny. I from the rumor is that they're not really pursuing Kamar too heavily. I know he got hurt this season. I mean, I don't hate the kid. I mean, like I said, it was a weird deal. I mean, I hope for the best for him. And if they end up recruiting him and he came here, I think everybody should welcome him with open arms. But anyway, moving on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got pushed by one person, Sunshine, to start bringing back the My Other Brother Darryl. So there was another good moment for one this week, so I grabbed it. And so again, if you don't know My Other Brother Darryl, you can go back and find some old clips of the TV show Bob Newhart, where it's a bunch of country bumpkins, basically. So just kind of guys that are just kind of, yeah, you're not right in the head, are you? So we kind of picked that person. So that's what we're looking at. And our My Other Brother Darryl for tonight's episode is none other than the one, the only TBOW, Mule Shoe, whatever you want to call him, LR, all that fun stuff. So he got to join College Football Live today and was asked in the midst of gaining Caleb Williams, how do you feel about the transfer portal? It seems like it's been a little bit ramped up, yada, yada. And he went on to say that there definitely needs to be changes and he's not very happy with the portal. There need to be guardrails put on the portal because it's getting too hard and it's becoming too difficult for coaches to put staffs together and to put rosters together when it's such a free and willy-nilly kind of system that you just don't know what's going to come next. So there needs to be some oversight and some changes made by the NCAA.
Well,
That's Lincoln Riley's tagline. When, as soon as he left, he went and tried to get Latrell McCutcheon. He tried to get Mario Williams. He tried to get Marvin Mims, tried to get Caleb Williams. Oh, and by the way, this is the same man who said that in-conference transferring was bad for college football, that it was unhealthy for college football, and that he even felt that there was a level of lack of integrity when you went inter-conference transferring. Yet he takes a transfer from Oregon and brings him to the school, and he will be immediately eligible. But if you remember, when Chandler Morris and Austin Kendall transferred within conference, he tried to block their transfer because he didn't want them anywhere. So all that to say, I'll let you have your piece right here, but that is my other brother, Darryl. That is the most hypocritical statement of all. Hypocritical. That's the word I'm looking for.
Apocryphal, though.
Apocryphal. That's a totally different thing that we don't need to get into right now. But it's the most hypocritical statement ever made, ever.
Well, okay, hang on. So the one thing I want to say is when you look at the whole situation, like let's take Chandler Morris, right? Let's just take Chandler Morris as an example, because I was like, I didn't understand it. Why you're blocking him? At that point, you had Spencer Rattler on roster, who had cemented himself as the starter at that point in time. You had Caleb Williams coming in, right? Yep. Like you were loaded at quarterback. Not only that, you at the time, you had you still have him, Micah Bowen. You had the quarterback room was just packed, right? And so him leaving, it's like, well, he wasn't going to see the field unless something catastrophic happened. Like, to be honest, nothing against Chandler Morris. I think he's a great quarterback, actually. But
yeah, I think he's really good.
But so him transferring, it's like, I think that's a situational thing where you got to say, yes, he is going in conference. We're gonna have to play him, but and it kind of went back to the whole, because I think he even made some comments about Chandler knowing some of their play calls and blah blah blah, and I was like, dude, like, I just think he's freaking paranoid. Like, I'm not saying that isn't true, but it's like it's such a weird behavior. It makes me just feel like people that usually are that paranoid are up to something nefarious anyway. So, because they're afraid of getting caught themselves more than it is that they're worried about somebody else, you know what I mean, doing the wrongdoing. But regardless of that, though, yeah, the whole portal thing, dude, shut up. Like, I'm sorry. You literally left a school. Like, this is the thing. You left a school that made you a millionaire, that gave you a national stage to build your brand and build your name, that gave you a ton of resources. We can get into, did they give you everything you wanted? They gave you a ton of resources. They gave you a ton of money. They gave you a ton of runway that they hadn't given other people. They'd given you, you were king of Oklahoma football. And you burn it to the ground to go somewhere else and make more money. Don't at me about recruiting. Don't at me about the transfer portal. Don't at me about NIL. Tebow, block me for all I care. Please block me. It's a badge of honor at this point. Because I swear, if you tweeted that, you would get ratioed to death.
He did get ratioed because ESPN tweeted it. ESPN's the one that put it out there on Twitter, and he got ratioed like crazy, and not just by OU fans, by like Baker transfer, Kyler transfer, Jalen transfer, Mike Woods transfer. Like, you can go down. This man is a transfer king, and he's even said, we don't offer as many scholarships so that we can leave the door open for guys that are going to enter the transfer portal. It's like, bro, like what? I don't understand. Like, do you just think we're all idiots? Like, do you just think that we like?
Well, here's what's interested me. Like, here's what shocked me a little bit, because as an Oklahoma fan, it feels like a lot of other fan bases hate OU, right? Like, and I get it, because OU has a good amount of success relative to most other programs, whatever, right? So there's that whole factor. But so many other fan bases I've seen roasting him and being like, what you did is wrong. Like I said, like, he tainted it. Like, I honestly think that he probably hurt future job prospects, right? Like, the top of the top schools, like Alabama or whatever, probably isn't going to go after him, because they're like, we don't know what your character's going to be. You might just decide you want to go to Georgia next year, right? Like, or you know what I mean? But I mean, that's you built this for yourself, right? So you saying this, it's like, dude, you're put the gas can down, dude. The fire's big enough as it is. Let it burn. In a few years, maybe everybody forget or move on or whatever. But right now is not the time to start trying to get up on a soapbox and tell everybody how things need to change. Okay, so that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, I mean, man. And look, here's the thing that stinks. What he's saying is right. What he's saying is true. But the problem is like, he's been one of the biggest abusers of the system. Like, and he definitely proved that this year. And abuser of the system's not right. I would say he somewhat abused it this year. But he has used the transfer portal like crazy. And then this year, especially, trying to gut the program that you just left, and then not blocking guys that he had transfer in, when he said that transferring interconference was literally bad for college football. That's what he said. He literally said that transferring in conference was bad for college football, and he's accepting multiple in-conference transfers and saying it's fine. That, man, I don't understand. And here's what I told Troy, and I talked on the phone earlier today, and I said, it is like, I don't, he has a brother, but it's like Lincoln Riley was an only child and got every single thing he wanted when he got it. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, because like, again, the way he left and not understanding why anybody would question that, blocking everybody that would even say something negative about him, saying that the transfer within conference is bad for college football, but then turning around and accepting an interconference transfer at any given point in time, right? Saying that we need to have all these guardrails and we need to slow down transferring, while you just accepted like 19 transfers into your program on top of it. And then to add on to it, you run practices, and when your alumni, your NFL Hall of Famers, Pro Bowlers want to come back to practice, you say, no, you're not allowed at practice. But then when you throw a barbecue, you call all of them and go, hey, we need you here, and we need you to come and show up. It's like, bro, like,
well, hang on.
What?
This is like, here's the analogy to me. Like, it's the analogy that just came with my head. It's like driving 100 miles an hour down the interstate, completely drunk, and then calling the highway patrol and complaining that they're not policing well enough. Like, there's all these crazy drunk, fast speeding drivers everywhere. What are you doing, you idiots? Like, you are one, dude. Shut up. Like, that's Lincoln Riley. Like, I'm sorry. You were literally complaining about the very thing you are. And like, literally the lack of self-awareness is mind blowing. But, I guess he feels like he's made of Teflon. Nothing will stick to him. He's just perfectly fine and clean. But whatever, dude. I mean, honestly, Tebow,
it's wild.
Do your thing, dude. Have a fun time. Whatever. Congratulations on. I hope you get to go 6-6 this year in front of 500 people. Would be great for me. I'd be happy for you, dude.
The other guy that was super salty today on sign day was Jimbo Fisher. Whoo! That dude got on a rant today. He was asked, I don't know if you saw this, there was a report going around that the promised NIL money coming out of A&M, that this recruiting class was going to cost them somewhere in the neighborhood of like $12 million to get in or whatever. And Jimbo just went nuts and talked about how they are the greatest university in the nation. The 12th man alone has people wanting to come there.
Oh.
Their history has people wanting to come there.
They should
And
not be
then
able.
he
They
goes,
should be banned from using the 12th man ever again. Like seriously.
and then basically saying that yes, while there's NIL opportunities there, and it's just complete hypocrisy when everybody knows that other schools have been paying players for a really long time, which then Nick Saban clapped back at and said, we have never paid for a player and will never pay for a player, which, but anyways,
Yeah.
Jimbo was all kinds of salty. But what's funny is, what I find funny about all that is we were really worried about kind of how the locker rooms would handle NIL, right? Like would the left guard be upset that the quarterback's making $500,000 and he's making 10 grand, right? Like on an NIL deal or whatever.
Mhm.
But it's the coaches. It's the coaches that are losing it now, because now it's out in the open what everybody's doing to get people in. And they are getting all kinds of salty and mad about it. It's like, oh, now you can just throw money at the wall and y'all have the best recruiting class, and we don't like it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's absurd. I mean, it's Jimbo, dude. Okay, sorry, I've got to touch on the Texas A&M being the greatest ever. Like, what? I just don't. Again, one of the most delusional. Every year is one of the most delusional fan bases in the world.
Yep.
You know, and it's like, and I'll give kudos. You guys got a good team right now. Like, you got a lot of talent. You got a good recruiting class. Like, you're going places, right? Like, you should be going places. But you look at it from a historical standpoint, or even because I know somebody's gonna be like, well, that's just all OU fans do. No, okay, let's just look at the last 5 years. Texas A&M has not been one of the top 10, top 20 programs probably in the country in that span. So what are you on about? You know? Oh, Sunshine. By the way, Sunshine is in here. What's up, Sunshine?
Oh, let's go, Sunshine.
So yeah, I mean, honestly, Jimbo, just shut up, dude. But I've never been a big Jimbo fan. And I think that I mean, I do think the coaches are probably. I think it's just another thing for them to manage, right? Like, I mean, now it's like they're having to be almost an NFL coach, and they're gonna have to manage prima donnas. Like I said, I mean, come on, let's be honest. I mean, and I'm not saying this is going to be an absurd statement, but you get the premise from it. If the quarterback rolls up in a Lamborghini, even if I'm driving a really nice Charger or whatever, right? It's like, okay, like that's not the same, right? Like there's clearly a divide between me and you.
Right.
And that's hard to not build animosity when there's that big of a gap, right?
Yeah.
100%. So it's going to be something that's going to be managed. I think there's going to have to be regulation. There's going to have to be. It's such a weird thing. I don't know what they're going to do. I hope this isn't like I sometimes get the fear that this is going to be the death blow to college football. But over the course of the next.
Could be.
So anyway,
definitely could be.
But yeah.
So yeah, our last thing, we haven't done this in a long time, especially when Colin Cowherd was on his Baker rants for a while. We always have a segment on here called the Colin Cowturd. And so we decided to bring it back because now Mr. Cowturd has decided that his new enemy is just Oklahoma as a whole, right? Like, hated the Thunder. He's hated Russell Westbrook. He's hated Oklahoma. He like all of it. And now that the Lincoln Riley saga has all gone down, he has clapped back at Oklahoma fans quite a bit, right? But Colin, all you've talked about is now there's a superstar at USC to go along with all the superstars in LA, right? And that's Lincoln Riley. This guy can coach. This guy can this. He's the best at this. He's the best at that. And yet, for the first 3 years of Lincoln Riley, all he could talk about was, well, he was handed the best players in his conference. Of course he's going to be good. Like, Lincoln Riley didn't do much. It was all Bob Stoops, and that's what it is. So I just, again, and I know that he's a clown, and I know that he just tries to get his clicks and whatnot. But if he wants to give a hot take and get everybody stirred up, his hot take should be, right, like, talent alone does not win Super Bowls, right? Like, having the most talented roster in the NFL doesn't win a Super Bowl. Having the most talented Roster
Texas.
doesn't even guarantee you a national
Texas.
championship. Yes, right. But what does is culture, right?
Well,
This is what Colin should be saying. I'll try to do my best, Colin. Right? Like, oh, you got the shiny new toy. You went and signed you created your fantasy football roster, and that's great. And that's what fans like. They want to sit at home and they believe that their team that they're a fan of should go out and get a fantasy football roster. But here's the deal. Fantasy football doesn't work in real life. What really wins things is culture. You think Bill Belichick's trying to create a fantasy team? No, Bill Belichick tries to create culture. It's called the Patriot Way, right? Pete Carroll, culture, right? Those guys are cool. Mike Shanahan being in his second Super Bowl in the last several, culture. It's culture that gets you there. You want a marriage? You don't just have a hot wife. You have to have a culture to have a good marriage, right? You can't just have kids. You got to have good culture with your kids.
Well,
that's what makes a winning program. That's the way this all goes. And so now we got to see if Lincoln Riley can create culture, but he's not saying that, right? But that's the same exact crap he would say about anybody that he didn't like and he wants to stir up crap about.
Well, hang on. So, okay, for one, Colin Cowherd is like the Inquirer of sports or whatever. Like he's the Sun or whatever. Whatever that one other tabloid article is. He's a tabloid. Like he just wants to get a flashy headline and put up a prompt on the screen that says something crazy. So you turn the volume on to hear him say the most absurd things. And honestly, it's like, look, dude, okay. I think for him, like he knows California is a big market, right? So he's just pandering to that, right? And it's funny to me because it's like everything you say, like not only is it verifiably wrong, like can be proven, it's like, okay, like let me put it this way, just to bring up, because I love roasting Texas fans. I got into it like whenever the whole Tebow left and everything was going down and it felt like the sky was falling. A Texas fan added me because I quoted I mentioned something like unrelated to anything Texas. This Texas fan's like, he like puts a screenshot of like the class rankings because OU would drop below Texas, and he was haha, we got you. And I was like, I'm pretty sure. I was like, how many, like you've been ahead of OU a lot of years. How is that helping you? When's your bowl game?
Yeah.
And like he didn't say anything, and he was like, and then like we had like another decommittee. He's like, see, your tweet's aging poorly. And I'm like, guys, look, like it doesn't matter. Like, yes, you need to have good recruiting classes, but at the end of the year, it's not like, okay, well, we had the number one recruiting class in the nation, so we're automatically the number one team in the nation every year. So this class is going. That's not how it works. Like you don't get your ranking based on a recruiting rank, right? Like they may factor it in to some degree. Like obviously Georgia's loaded with talent. Georgia got a lot of love because they've had loaded classes for 5 or 6 years, but they've also done a good job developing and good job getting a system in place, yada, yada, yada. They've gotten better, right? You look at Texas, it's like, well, Texas should be the top of the Big 12 easily based on class rankings, and they're not. So shut up. That doesn't make sense. And Sunshine makes a good point. He said Colin Cowherd, he figured out with Baker that OU fans going to react, so he's going to stir the pot. And that's fair. I mean,
again, he 100% knows that OU Twitter
or
Oklahoma Twitter is undefeated. And he's coming for it.
Look, Colin Cowherd, as much as I hate the guy, like I think he's just a clown and an idiot. He's a marketing genius, right? Like he's getting 100%. People clicking on him. So we're talking about him. So, it's working. But anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So real quick, before, hang on, let's finish our sports talk. Okay.
Yeah.
Can we talk the NFL? Can we talk the playoff? Because holy crap.
Oh, good Lord.
Dude,
yes.
I'm not even like, okay, let me be honest, guys. I love football and I'll watch NFL, but I'm not like, I don't have an allegiance to a team. Okay. Like I cheer for former OU players. I don't really care. Like I don't have a dog in the fight. I sort of cheered for the Bengals. Like I'm kind of pulling for the Bengals because Mixon and P. Ryan are two of my favorite OU players ever. If Baker was in, I'd be cheering for the Browns, whatever, right? But outside of that, I don't care. Like if the Bengals lost, I wasn't going to, my emotion didn't change at all, right? But holy crap, every single playoff game, I have been like on the edge of my seat, like, this has got to be the greatest playoff series ever in the NFL, in my opinion. Like it has
great
to be up there.
Stories, not just great games, great stories. I mean, look, Joe Burrow taking 9 sacks and still getting a win. Great story. Great story. And a team that hasn't been successful in the playoffs forever, right? Like,
yeah,
and
they
then
literally
beating
haven't
the
had
giant of the Chiefs.
well, like they haven't had a playoff win since like 1991 or something absurd.
Yeah.
Like it's just mind-boggling how long it's been. But
and by the way, again, for like terrible headlines, Joe Burrow is that dude. Okay, can I just say that right now? Joe Burrow is legit. Very like, I'm all in on the guy.
Everybody's.
Okay, but
did you see? Oh god, here we go.
The greatest turnaround in 2 years in NFL history. I'm sorry, that still belongs to Baker Mayfield. Period.
Oh yeah,
Cleveland was considered the worst sports franchise, maybe in all of sports, and he got them one play away and a terrible referee call away from the AFC Championship game in 2 years. So
yeah.
Oh, and like, hang on. And Cincinnati's been to the playoffs multiple times. They just lost in the first round with Andy Dalton.
Yeah, like, and let's be honest, like the Bengals have actually spent a good part of, like you said, basically like you said, the last 10 to 15 years being a middle of the pack team, like close to being top of the pack, right?
Correct.
And the Browns didn't win a game for 2 seasons. Didn't win. Let me say that again for people that don't remember. They didn't win a game for 2 seasons. Not that they didn't win
one game in 2 seasons. One game.
Okay, they won 1 game in 2 seasons. The first game they had won and was 17 or 18 games was with Baker. You know what I mean? Like it's absurd to me that anyway. But and the other thing, but one thing I will give Joe Burrow, because I thought this was, again, this goes back to the people trying to grab onto things. Did you see the interview where people got mad at Joe Burrow because he was wearing a chain that said, I think Burrow or Joe or something on it, and it was diamond and crested and everything? And a reporter asked Joe, are those real diamonds? And he said, I make too much money for them to be fake, and kind of laughed. And people were like, that's just unsensitive. That's insensitive. Like he was a humble guy, and now look at him. And I was like, dude, it was a joke.
Oh my gosh.
Like, shut up. You know what I mean? Like,
get over it.
Yeah, I actually like Joe Burrow. I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's a great player. And the other thing I would give the Bengals, if they can get that offensive line shored up, because that's their weak point by a large margin. If they could shore up that offensive line, dude, they are good. They could be salty. If they get some guys in this offseason or whatever, man, they might be a salty team next year. They might be way better next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was he humble though? I mean, yes. Sunshine. I would say, I don't know that he's like the most humble guy, but it's like he comes from humble beginnings. He's not like, I do think, I mean, you when you listen to
that
him,
dude,
he's extremely confident.
Swagger.
Yeah, he oozes swagger, and he's extremely confident in himself, right? But I think the thing is like, he also doesn't seem to be the guy that wants to be standing at the front of the pack saying, well, like, I'm the one that won, right? Like, not to say like Patrick Mahomes or anything is like that. I don't think I like Patrick Mahomes too.
No,
but
his wife,
his wife, yeah. Again, another reason I cheered against them. But there's certain guys that you can look at in the NFL that it's like, yes, they're very good talent, but they kind of have like, they want everybody to know they're really good talent. I don't think Joe Burrow cares.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yes. As great as Aaron Rodgers is, that's fair. But he does have that personality, I think, of being like, I just want to go out and throw the ball and play well and let my game speak. Right? Like,
he's not as like linebacker-ish in it. He's very Baker Mayfield. Like, but without like the whole I was a walk-on and hate the world, right? But that same just like he knows he's gonna make that play every single time he has to make that play, and that kind of stuff. I mean, dude, I didn't know for sure how good he would be, but man, he's been great. And then the San Francisco game, man, they don't quit, bro. And say what you will, man, Shanahan is a great NFL coach. To get that team as far as he did and to get them that close to beating the Rams with as many injuries as they had, with as many guys as they had down, and like, man, just incredible coaching job.
Yeah, and I mean, but yeah, the NFL, the playoffs has been just nuts. There's like you said, there's so many good storylines. There's so many funny ones. Like I said, the whole Mahomes. Oh my God,
Oh.
what a clown. She is.
Well, I mean, there's that. I mean, the Stafford storyline. I mean, okay, let's go all the way through it.
Yeah,
Joe Burrow, as soon as Cincinnati made the playoffs, everybody wrote him off because their offensive line was terrible and Joe Burrow was going to die, and all he's done is won games. Great story, right? Matt Stafford being left in the purgatory of Detroit and now making a run. Great story. Aaron Donald just being dominant. Great story. The 49ers just being crazy scrappy, and the Jimmy G, not good enough stuff. And then there he is, probably a play away from the Super Bowl. Awesome.
OBJ's redemption.
OBJ's redemption is a great story.
I want to tell a funny story because so I was popped in somebody's stream that's a big Kansas City Chiefs fan, and I was telling her it was when Kansas City was up 21-3, and I said, what do you think of the game? And she's like, oh, we're gonna beat their, she was oozing confidence that they were gonna win, and I just jokingly said, well, don't forget week 16 or 17 or whatever it was, because that's exactly what happened to them. They were ahead by 18 points and ended up collapsing and losing. And so what's funny is I left. I went and watched the game. As a matter of fact, I was cleaning because I thought the game was over. Right, it was 21-3, and at that point, I mean, to be honest, up to 21-3, Kansas City was just walking down the field and scoring at will. Like there was no stopping them at that point. And then all of a sudden, it just was like they hit a brick wall. And so anyway, so I was like cleaning. I was like, dude, this game's okay. Like, Cincinnati scored. All right. And then it was like, okay, they scored again. Now it's really a game. Then you started kind of sitting on in your seat being like, oh, this is a game. So what's funny is I went back after the game was over. I went back and I was like, hey, what do you think of the game now? And she was like, oh, I hadn't checked the score. What did it end up being? And I was like, you might want to go peep. She thought they'd won. So she pulled it up and she was livid. She was livid. I was like, she thought I was talking trash, and I was like, I'm not talking trash. I'm not. I don't care. But like she had thought they'd won because they were ahead by so much.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, yeah. But anyways, a ton of great stories. The NFL's playoffs have been great. I'm actually hyped for the Super Bowl. I'm gonna be cheering for the Bengals. I'm gonna be cheering for the Bengals. But I do think it's a cool story, like how everybody in Michigan is cheering and Detroit is cheering for Stafford because he did try. Yeah. He did so much for Detroit. I mean, he did.
I'm all in on that train.
So I if he won, like I said, that's again, if the Bengals lost, which I think they probably will, I'm going to cheer for them. I'm not going to be upset. I'll be just as happy. But anyway, yeah. So and then enough of the NFL talk.
Well, no. Hold on.
Hang on. Okay, my bad.
We have to say goodbye to Tom Brady.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we have to talk about the fact that Tom Brady is gone, even though Shefty reported it. We're not leaving, or I'm not retiring. Yes, I am retiring. That whole thing. I could easily see him going to San Francisco. 100%.
I think did y'all talk about the Washington team's new name? No, we didn't. I didn't wait. Did they announce
Commanders.
it? The Commanders. Oh my God. They should have gone with Sentinels. It should have been the Sentinels.
Sentinels would have been better.
Dude, I like literally what's funny is like, okay, here's what cracks me up. What's so funny is when somebody made that a joke. When they had to come up with a new name, somebody made the joke, it should be the Sentinels, like out of the replacements. And literally there was like a deal on Reddit where it got at one point, I think it was like one of the highest on r/NFL, like the highest upvotes for people saying that they would pre-order or they would order jerseys, like if they did throwback jerseys to the Sentinel jerseys out of the replacements.
Oh yeah.
And it was like this big meme, but it was like they could have everybody was in on it, and Commanders, whatever. And Red Tails would have been a cool name.
Red Tails would have been awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. And you could have done so many neat things. I mean, great story.
Yeah,
Red Tails is a great story.
Yeah.
Anyways,
So-
but yeah, that and did you see how it got leaked though, and why they had to announce it? I don't know how it came about, but a local news company put their helicopter in the air and zoomed in on the hallways inside the stadium, and they had already painted Commanders.
Oh
And
my
they were
Lord.
able to shoot with their camera down through the window and see it painted in there. And then they released it like 2 days later or whatever.
Now, if Sunshine says now they are the commies.
Oh.
That's true. That's true. They're gonna be the Red Scare.
Oh, nice. Well played.
But yeah, no, it's gonna be I don't know. That franchise is such a disaster.
Here, let me ask you this. If you had to pick this real quick, kind of moving off Commanders and back to the Brady deal, who will be the quarterback of the 49ers next year? Jimmy G, the Trey Lance kid, Tom Brady, or Aaron Rodgers?
I think it might be Aaron Rodgers. I mean, look, it's going to be interesting to see. I think the problem that San Francisco is going to have is trying to have the money to pay all those guys. And I think they're not quite like, they have a lot of talent. Don't get me wrong. The Niners have a lot of talent, right? But I think he's still like, I don't know. I think they're missing like a weapon, like one weapon to be in like a real powerhouse offense. You know what I mean? To be in like an actual, like you're going to be dominant because you can throw the ball wherever you want sort of situation.
Right.
So I don't know. It could be anybody. That's why I don't think it's going to be Brady. I mean, I could see Brady, but I just think Aaron Rodgers wants out of, I mean, he straight up just walked off the field when they lost. Like he did not care to be there.
And played like trash too.
Yeah. And he just doesn't look like I honestly just doesn't look like he enjoys the game anymore, to be honest with you. But that's just me. I mean, obviously I don't know what's going on inside his head, but and I actually don't hate Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I do think he's kind of a prima donna and he's a little weird, but you know, it is what it is. But I have to ask this question on behalf of King Nemo because we talked about this yesterday. Okay. So, and Sunshine, I want you to feel free to chime in. Anybody that's listening to this podcast,
Sunshine.
anybody that's in podcast form, please feel free to comment what yours is. Darryl, what is, if you're picking one breakfast cereal you can eat the rest of your life, just one, what are you picking?
Dude, this is so hard. Because there's two for me that if it's in the pantry, it gets devoured. If it's like whole life, I'm gonna give the edge to one because I've been eating it since I was a kid, and it's always been great, and that's Cinnamon Toast Crunch. But the new love in the last several years that is so good, and I don't know why I didn't expect to like it this much, is stinking Honey Chex cereal. That junk is unbelievably good. It is so good. It used to be Cinnamon Toast Crunch and Honey Nut Cheerios, right? Like side by side. Honey Nut Cheerios is out of the picture. It's been taken over, and it's by Honey Chex. That junk is ridiculously good.
Okay, I'm gonna hang on. I just need to get some details for you before we go off air because I need to post a listing for a new brother. But I'm totally on board. I'm totally on board with the Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Okay, Cinnamon Toast Crunch is way in a league of its own.
It's a world killer.
I'm sorry, Cinnamon Toast Crunch is in a world of it, like it's its own thing. So, but yeah, it's gonna be it's what's funny is it's kind of become a meme of the channel. People have been asking, and Nemo asked me, and I was like, well, we grew up together. But we never really ate breakfast cereal. Our age differences were so, we're almost 9 years apart. So I was like, we didn't ever really eat breakfast cereal together that I can remember. And I was so little, I don't remember. So, but I told him, I said, my guess was actually Cinnamon Toast Crunch or Corn Pops was my guess. But I was like, I wouldn't be certain at all on that. So anyway, but,
hey, we have a few Discord questions too.
Oh yeah, that's
right. Well, oh my gosh. Oklahoma MoMA Stutzman Stan wants to know where babies come from. Mo, if we have to have that conversation, well, look, man, it's the storks. The storks bring them. How about that?
Yeah.
Storks
Yep.
drop them at the doorstep. That's the deal
Mhm.
there.
Your parents
And
don't
then
buy your parents buy you at the store. That's how it works.
James W asked, what's the scoop on the new quality control guy that Brent just hired? And I'm pretty sure he's talking about JP Lossman. That was announced, I believe, yesterday, or maybe even this morning. That's coming in. I don't know necessarily what the full scoop is. His title is one of those that's real vague. It's like player assessment / offensive something, right? Like, and who knows what that means. I will say this. The guy had like a 7-year career in the NFL. Actually started some games, was a very forgotten guy. I believe he was an unrestricted free agent signing, started some games for Buffalo, started some games for some other teams as well. So hung on the league for a while. He was at Clemson on staff for about 5 years. I believe 5 seasons he was there. Started as a grad assistant, moved up to something else. Look, I love this hire. I think anytime you can bring guys in, number one, that and obviously Brent does from his time at Clemson, but 2, that spent that long in the NFL, that's a win, because those guys, whether they were highly successful or not, they've seen what it takes to be great at that level. And I think that's always a sales pitch. And surely that many years in the NFL, you learn some things about how to scheme things, how to disguise things, how to attack some different things that you wouldn't know just from being on the college level. So I think it's a home run hire. I'm very excited about it personally.
Right. Well, and I think, okay, so one other thing, I mean, that you got to think is, like, we talked about this a little before the pod. I think Brent's going to have these guys because good Lord, they have feels like they have a 5,000 analysts now, or people doing some sort of, the soul. I don't even know half this job titles. You know what I mean? It literally is. I don't know. It's like they literally have like a will they spin with letters on it, and they're like, "That's your title. You're the soul guy." But yeah, I mean, I think the thing is and I don't know. Like, this is something like maybe if you're somebody's more aware than I am, because I'm not, like, where the rules are with like compliance, but it may be like, okay, well, you're an offensive guy, so you can technically talk to recruits X amount of time or whatever. So it kind of opens up some doors with recruiting or just contacting guys or just watching film or whatever. Like, it's never a bad thing in that situation to have more people, right? So
Yeah.
and like I said, the guys you've got Caleb Kelly is staying on staff.
Yep.
There's, I mean, the guys they're bringing in are just diehard OU guys. Or a lot of them are, I should say, not all of them. But like I said, Caleb Kelly just wants to be at OU, things like that. And so, but I think it's also like you look at, like you said, with the NFL experience, it's just like Roy. If anybody hasn't seen it, again, shout out to the guys at Podcast on the Prairie, Braden Willis and Jeremiah Hall.
Yeah.
They did an interview with Roy Williams. Roy Williams was like, "Look, hey man, I know this guy. Like, I'll give him a call. I'll give him your number. I'll text it to you after this."
Yeah.
He's like, having those contacts half the time is what helps the guy honestly get drafted, probably.
Yeah.
Or get a better contract or whatever. So it's amazing to see that they're doing those things. So I think it's a home run hire.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't think you have too many of those guys. So it's all good, man. It's exciting to see, and even the additions. And by the way, another thing we didn't talk about kind of on the recruiting front, Jeremiah Cradell also being added to the staff as some kind of grad assistant as well. He kind of gave a cryptic tweet that nobody really understood. And then if you go back and look for the junior day, they took kind of a picture of the staff, and Cradell is in that picture as well. And so again, Brent adding not only young guys from this team, but adding, oh goodness gracious, Norman. They just announced him the other day is coming on staff.
Josh Foreman.
Josh Norman, thank you. Him being added into there, and several other ex-OU guys. I mean, Levy's an ex-OU guy. You got Brandon Hall's an ex-OU guy. I mean, he understands that there's a love for that place and there is a brotherhood in that place, and they want to take advantage of those relationships, especially if the guys really have the ability. So I think all those things are wins.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, like I said, it's like I said, it's hard a way to look at those hires and not slice it up as a win. So, but yeah, I mean, and I would probably expect there's probably going to be more this offseason, to be honest with you. They're probably just kind of getting started. Because you look at schools like, and it can be hard to tell because like they don't really keep it's hard to track down like positions at other schools, right?
Right.
Like Bama, like they have a bunch of analysts, and some of them they probably haven't posted on Twitter that they're even an analyst or whatever.
Right.
But it's like schools like that, it's pretty evident that they have 20 or 30 freaking analysts on staff, and OU had like 5 or 6, right? So I think he's kind of filling it out and trying to get them ready to go to the SEC. I guess the donors and the booster and the school have all bought in and said like, here's some money to do it. But yeah. So it's a good thing. Like I said, yeah, it's and Brent's as far as like I said, I have no reason to not question Brent. I mean, he was honestly successful at OU his entire time here. We can try to slice up his last season or two, but really it wasn't a bad season. And he was successful at Clemson. I mean, he was dominant at Clemson, to be honest.
Yeah. Kansas State.
Yeah.
Was
I mean,
successful.
he's and he just seems like a quality guy. I mean, it's he definitely you can tell a stark contrast between him and Muleshoe. Anyway, real quick before we get off the air, are you watching? Have you started watching 1883 yet?
No, I have not
Okay.
yet. I
Did
got to
you-
get. I've got to borrow a login for some Paramount Plus.
Or well, text me. I guess I'm your brother. You could have just called me, but whatever. Did you see the? I think it was not. I haven't seen today's, but did you see last week's?
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett,
Yeah,
bro,
Yeah.
bro.
So good. I did not. I'm
gonna be honest.
I should have seen it coming, but I totally did not.
Well, they've so I don't want to spoil it for anybody. I guess. Well, actually, just
So Lee.
spoiler alert. They had well, I can't. Sunshine's here. So basically, there was some foreshadowing to what happens and everything. So it's not a complete surprise. Like you'll see it and you'll be stoked, but it's not gonna like knock you back in surprise.
Right.
But the cool thing is, like I told somebody, I was like, Boba Fett, like the first couple of episodes, I kind of was like, you know what I mean? Like it was okay. Like I was like, this has got to start doing something or I'm going to lose interest pretty quick. And the last couple of episodes have been really good. I haven't seen today. So, but yeah, so I caught up on that. I'm caught up on Yellowstone, 1883 and Yellowstone. I've been caught up on Yellowstone. Mayor of Kingstown just wrapped up. It was really, really good. So I guess when I send you my Paramount Plus, watch it. It's really good.
Yeah.
And I just started watching SEAL Team because I just wanted something else to watch.
Dude, man, that show makes me so frustrated. The Brave was so much better.
Well, let me just say this. It's pretty cheesy, right? Like,
yes,
SEAL Team is so cheesy. Like, it's got like guilty pleasure. Like, it feels like a B movie. Like military movie. You know what I mean? Like,
yes. The Brave. Did you ever watch The Brave when it was on?
No.
Dude, you've downloaded it because my kids love that show.
I haven't seen it though.
You need to go back and watch it. You tell me which one's better. And it got canceled after one stinking season, and I don't understand. It was so good. So good. And then they canceled it. I wish somebody would pick up that show. It was amazing. I still go back and watch that season over and over again. But I haven't really Boba Fett. I did my Oak Island, but this week was a super boring episode. Next week's going to be it's going to be hitting next week. They're doing some real excavating starting next week.
Oh, so this is something you probably don't care about. I'm pumped for another Paramount Plus thing that got announced during the Bengals game.
Uh-oh.
The new Halo show.
No, that looks legit. I agree.
Okay, so
I totally forgot that's Paramount Plus, but that looks legit.
So I just want to say, for those of you who don't know, I'm a huge Halo nerd. I've always been a Halo nerd. That's even like the whole Spartan theme of my channel is halfway because of Master Chief and all that. But as you can see, I literally have the helmet that I use for my car when I go to the track. It looks like Master Chief's helmet. And I got the gold. I had to spend extra to get the gold visor. Anyway, it is such a it's gonna be interesting because people have been wanting to make a live action, like they did the live action movie kind of thing several years ago. It was Forward Unto Dawn, which was pretty. I actually thought was really. I mean, it wasn't really good, but it was good. Like it was a very watchable movie in my opinion. And so I'm pretty pumped to see what happens with Halo, but I'm interested because some of the things in the trailer, I'm like, I don't know how that's going to fit into the canon of the story, like as far as in the games and the books, but we'll see. It does look really, really good. It kind of gave me like, have you seen The Expanse?
No.
So The Expanse is really good. It's on Amazon. I think you can watch it on Amazon. It's on Prime Video. It's a pretty good show. So it gets really weird, but it's like, it's really, really good. Anyway, so yeah, I'm pretty pumped for it, man. There's a lot of good stuff, and we're not far from. I mean, there's a lot of good movies coming out. Like we're gonna be having a lot of talk about. Just we're gonna have to do a movie podcast and TV show podcast, I guess.
Yeah, and I finally watched Eternals. Finally, from the Marvel side of things this week too.
It's okay. Yeah, it was. I mean, it sets up a lot. It's really the cooler part. So this isn't even really a spoiler. At the end, the very end credit scene, like the one that's after all the credits, like literally the last scene you see.
Yeah.
You know who that is talking, right? Like who the voice is that you don't like, you just hear that you don't.
No,
that's Blade.
I didn't get a chance to.
They're remaking Blade. They've already announced that they are, but I think it's supposed to come out in 2023, and it's I can't think of the guy's name. Let me look at
Idris Elba or whatever.
No, it's not Idris Elba. Delroy Lindo. No, that's not him. Hang on. That's not him. Who is it? What is his name? I can't say his name. Mahershala Ali.
Yeah. He'd be good at that.
They should have brought back Wesley Snipes. Well, Wesley Snipes is probably still paying off his taxes. So, but no, I think it'll be pretty good. It's supposed to be a complete reboot. So
nice.
I actually like the old Blade movies. I know they were cheesy, but they were so much fun. They were guilty pleasure.
The later ones were cheesy. The first 1 and 2 were really good.
Yeah.
1 and 2 were really good. Anyway, so well, that's us, man. I got nothing else. If you got nothing else, been a lot to talk about. There's still more coming down the pike, obviously. And now that we're past signing day and hopefully past all of the Caleb saga, all that stuff, we can start talking a little more Thunder, things like that. Women's softball is about to take off, which is a unanimous #1. So there's plenty of Oklahoma sports still to be hitting. Spring game will be here before we know it. So all that good stuff. So again, thanks for sticking around, doing the stream with us, listening. We're having a great time. We hope you are too. I'm Darryl.
I'm J-Rod.
And we will talk to you guys later. Bye, Baker.
Cha-ching, it's under money ball. And you can unhitch the wagon. Put the ponies in the ball.